Hello again, Year 3. So we're going to read another 3 chapters of Harry the Poisonous Centipede. I know that we won't get to the end of the book today, but what I will do is I'll do some more recordings and make sure that we read the whole book before the Christmas holidays, hopefully while you're all still in school. So I'll do some more recordings and we'll finish the book. But today we will read the next 3 chapters. Okay, hope you're ready. So at the end of our last chapter, it was Harry who was feeling brave and he was wanting to go and have a peep at a Hoomin. Chapter 15, looking at a Hoomin. As soon as their 2 little heads poked out of the tunnel, they saw it. Only they didn't recognise it at first. They were looking for a tree with cat or dog feet. And this was something quite different, as you know, because what they saw looked very like you, only a lot bigger. Their weak little eyes were almost dazed by the bright sunlight, but standing just a little way away was well, what could they call it? A thing, a monster. They'd never seen or dreamt of anything half as big, awful and scary. Is that one? It must be. It's not big like I thought, crackled George. No, George crackled back. It's worse. The Hoomin came towards their tunnel. They shrank back into it. The huge feet thumped the ground, which shook and trembled. The 2 Centis cowered down. One foot slammed right down over the hole, shutting out the light. For a second there was darkness. Then the foot lifted and the light shone in again. The thumping got fainter as the Hoomin walked away. George and Harry cautiously lifted their heads above the ground and watched it go. It makes the mole cricket look like an ant. I bet even hairy biters and belly crawlers are scared of Hoomins. Then George said something unbelievable. Let's follow it. Harry let out a great crackle. Are you crazy? Its eyes must be in that round part at the top. How could it see us? It's so far up from us. Let's just run after it and see what it does. And without waiting for Harry, George scurried off out of the tunnel and took off on all his 42 legs after the Hoomin. Chapter 16, Belinda to the rescue. You've probably noticed that Harry nearly always did what George did, but not this time. After dithering for a bit, he turned and ran back down the tunnel to his home nest. Belinda was there, of course, fast asleep. Mama, wake up, crackled Harry. Belinda shot out from under her leaf. What is it? Is it a belly crawler? No, Mama, it's a Hoomin. If centipedes could turn pale, Belinda would have become a white centipede. Her front feelers waved so wildly they bumped into each other and twisted together. It was like a person wringing their hands. Where? She breathed at last. On the no-top world, Mama. Belinda untwisted her feelers and seized Harry with her pincers. What are you frightening me for? Where else would a human be? We're quite safe down here, Hooks, if this is your idea of a joke. But, Mama, Grund is up there too. Belinda let Harry go. Grund for short, George, had no mother. It was his own fault for leaving her, but the fact was he had no one to look after him. No one but Belinda. She didn't waste time asking any more questions. Come on, she said, and began racing up the nearest up tunnel. Harry raced after her. Halfway along it, she stopped dead, and Harry ran into her rear segment. Without a crackle, she turned round, ran back, ran along another tunnel, stopped, listened, and turned again. All the time Harry was trying to follow her, bumping into her, having her run over him as she turned, and then running after her again. He couldn't make out what she was doing, but suddenly he heard the thumping overhead again, and he understood. Belinda was trying to find out exactly where the Hoomin was above them. Now she ran into another tunnel. Belinda knew the network of tunnels very well. She knew how to get to the surface in the right place, nearest the Hoomin. They poked their heads out of the tunnel. The brightness fell on them. It hurt their eyes, but they put up their feelers and scented the air with them. Harry sensed the humin at once. It had a very strong smell and it put out a lot of heat. Even in the hot sunshine, he could feel it in his sensitive feeler tips. The humin was very close to them, so close its shadow fell on them. Can you sense Grund? Belinda asked. They were both waving their feelers desperately in all directions. Yes, he's over there, said Harry, pointing with both feelers. I sense him. I'm going to fetch him. No, Mama, don't. The humin. Stay here. Don't you dare come out till I get back. The humin strikes. Belinda dashed out to the hole. She headed straight for George, who was hiding under a bit of stick. He'd followed the humin for quite a long way and was now watching it, fascinated. He didn't see what the humin was doing, but Belinda did. The humin was bending and straightening. It was lifting things. It was lifting sticks. Its big feeler was reaching out. It was reaching for the stick that George was hiding under. Belinda ran, signalling frantically for George to come to her, but George wasn't noticing anything except the humin. It was so big and so close that George couldn't make out what it was doing until the stick that was covering him was suddenly lifted away. George was out in the open. The humin could see him. The humin straightened up. Its shadow covered everything as it raised its top leg with the stick in its feeler. The stick it had just picked up came down again, very hard. Whack! Right on the ground where George was. If centipedes could shriek, Belinda would have shrieked. But after all, the stick didn't land where George was, but where George had been half a second before. He shot out of the way just as the stick came down. The stick came down again, and again. It beat the earth. Whack, whack, whack. George ran frantically here and there, dodging the stick, but he couldn't really dodge it. He didn't know where it would hit next. He was more frightened than he had ever been before in his life. He just twisted and turned and raced here and there. It was only good luck that the beating stick kept missing him. Sooner or later it must find him. Suddenly the stick fell to the ground. The humin let it go. George stopped running. He looked round. The humin was leaving the ground and coming back to it very heavily. The noise and vibrations were thunderous. It kept making noises from its head as well, noises that sounded like ow, ow, ow. Can you guess what had happened? Right, that brave mother centipede, Belinda, had run up to the humin's trouser and given its leg a mighty bite. Well, I'm glad that we're stopping there when we know that George is safe, but I wonder whether that's the end of their adventure with the humin or if something else is going to happen before they make it back to safety. So, as I said, I will record some more sessions. It might be for this week, it might be for next week, but we'll definitely get to the end of the story because I definitely need to finish reading it, and I'm only reading it with you because we've caught up for where we got to in 3IW. So all of this is new for me as well. Okay, well, I will see you all soon. See you at school tomorrow, and I'll see you soon for some more stories. Okay, thanks. Bye.